So now we will move on to our reminiscence, which is going to be delivered by the granddaughters of Alan Mander and Princess Sudhira Devi of Cooch Behar. Our special
Okay.
guests, respected Mrs. Vanessa Indira and Mrs. Diana Garnham Buse, and our honorable chief guest, Mrs. Ayesha Sara Cowie. Mrs. Vanessa Indira Ilsley was brought up with her two sisters and educated in London. Interestingly, she is the only daughter who was initiated into the Brahmo Samaj and still has her little sari tucked away. She studied a law degree while working and later went on to become a chartered secretary and then moved to Monaco where they lived for 20 years. They have a son and daughter. I'm sorry, she was assistant company secretary of HSBC Holdings in London when she met her husband and then moved to Monaco where they lived for 20 years and they have a son and daughter who are in their early 20s. Vanessa has continued to work part-time and has also held committee positions with various local organizations and was president for 4 years of the British Association of Monaco, and they are currently living in France. Mrs. Diana Anjoli Buse, although principally a historian by training, for much of her professional career, she worked in areas of science policy and public engagement in science. Since standing down from her last full-time role as Chief Executive of the United Kingdom Science Council in 2015, she has developed a number of non-executive roles in addition to undertaking consultancy projects. After a first degree in politics at the Leicester University and an MA in War Studies at King's College London, Diana undertook research into the conduct of World War II in the Far East and is now hoping to complete her PhD as a retirement project. She was awarded an honorary doctorate of laws from the University of Leicester and Society and Leicester for services to science and society and made a free man of the City of London for her work on promoting careers in science. In 2015, she was awarded the Outstanding Alumni Achievement Award by the University of Leicester. Alumni, and in February 2017, she received an honorary doctorate of science from the University of Brighton in recognition for her work on diversity in science. She lives in East Sussex with her husband, Mr. Rodney Buse, and enjoys spending time with family and friends, sewing and needlecrafts her garden and traveling in a motorhome. Mrs. Ayesha Sara Cowie is the youngest of all three sisters. She studied Latin at Bristol University. She worked with a major retailer in their training and personal department before moving to advertising regulation, where she met her husband, Mr. Michael Cowie. They have been married for 33 years and have two daughters, aged 29 and 22. For many years, she was chair of alumni for her old school, which her sister Vanessa also attended and continues to be involved with the committee. For the last 11 years, she has continued her love of language by teaching English in a prep school in South London, mostly to pupils who have English as a second language. She lives in South London, not far from their mother. Now we would request our chief guest, as Sarah, and I think Diana would be doing the screen sharing. So we would request our guests to please proceed with the session. Hello.
Our mother, Monisha. Okay, yes. Diana. Our mother was born in London in 1934, the youngest child of baby Cooch Behar, Princess Sudhira. She grew up listening to the stories of mother and her cousins with whom she was very, very close. She has an extensive collection of beautiful photographs of the family, which we used to love looking at as children. So you can see here in the top right, Granny Sudhira's wedding to Alan Mander, which I believe was taken at Woodlands in Calcutta. Below that is our great-grandmother, Suniti, with Geeta, who was Mummy's elder sister. The photograph below that is our mother just a couple of years ago holding a puppy, as you can see. And then next to that is Granny, our Granny holding Mummy as a baby, a picture of Granny when she was young, and the main picture is our mother a few years ago. Although we lived in England and did not have the opportunity to visit Cooch Behar altogether as a family, our mother instilled in us a strong sense that we also had our Indian heritage. Monisha is also known as Garbo, which is what our father called her and many of our relatives. And this is a nickname after the actress Greta Garbo, who was very prominent at the time that our mother was born. Our mother has written a few words here about her journey into dog rescue, and I'm going to read those out to you. My life in rescue started way back during World War II, during the time my sister, Geeta, was an ambulance driver during the London Blitz. Geeta was forever bringing home the cats and dogs found cowering among the rubble and smoke of bombed dwellings, while she and her colleagues searched for human survivors. These wretched animals seldom lived due to shock, injuries, and the dreaded distemper virus so prevalent in those days. I was shown how to nurse, feed, and cuddle them by my long-suffering mother, who must surely have had more pressing things to do at that time. We, as a family, had many family pets which all travelled with us when we moved homes. A thorough grounding in kennel management, training in veterinary nursing in my early teens, culminated in a marriage to a Metropolitan Police dog handler, 3 daughters, and finally being involved in the rescue of abused and neglected German Shepherd dogs. I set up my own small charity in 2007, and with the vital support of family, friends, and volunteers, we worked to try to ease the suffering of the animals that come to us in search of a better life. The Brahmo Samaj teachings passed down to me have had an immense impact on my commitment. Keshav was a dedicated vegan and believed each of us should nurture and respect all animals as well as humans. My mother was full of stories about her pets at the palace, a bear she brought up from a cub, a leopard, and I'm not sure what became of that, dogs, of course, and the elite and amazing elephants so loved by HH. The polo ponies also played a special part in the Cooch Behar family life, and both Pretty, that's Pritiva, and Baby were allowed and taught to ride astride bareback by their father, presumably very scandalous in the Edwardian days. Just for the record, Baby Cooch Behar, my mother, was the tomboy of the 3 daughters, and she swam, rode, climbed trees, played cricket with her brothers, no doubt much to the serene, ladylike and beautiful Suniti's despair. And Baby was, my mother says, Baby was also the favourite of Nipendra's children, being the little one, and that she must have been completely devastated when he died so young. So that ends my mother's reminiscences. And I'd now like to pass to my elder sister, Vanessa.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
You're quite faint.
Yeah, that's what I'm not good at this.
It's good for me. Yep.
But it's okay. Yes, thanks, Vanessa.
Can you hear?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. So I'm going to write, I made my first trip to India when I was 15. This was a wonderful opportunity to visit the family in Calcutta and able to visit Cooch Behar with the Maharaja Maharani of Cooch Behar, Uncle Byron, Auntie Gina. They had been regular visitors to our home in London, treating the 3 of us as if we were their daughters. Not got to that picture yet. I have memories of many parties at Alipur, the Cooch Behar home in Calcutta. I met many relatives, too numerous to recall the names, but I did meet and party with the Cooch Behar cousins, Beam, Hubby and Viraj. Devika was already married and in Delhi. I met with several Sen cousins too. I was also taken out and about by the Jaipurs, Auntie Ayesha and Uncle Jai, which of course was quite an experience for a 15-year-old. They were so easygoing to be with, you would not have realized that they were the golden couple of their era. Growing up with such illustrious relatives ensured that we were raised understanding the customs and gestures required. We were taught to namaste to everyone, and more importantly, touch the feet of any senior relatives or important people. If we did not, it would get back to our mother and grandmother, and I would still do the same today. We flew to Cooch Behar, where I remember being met at the airport by an entourage. Everyone was so excited that the Maharaja was visiting. I have a memory of seeing elephants on the front lawn, one of which had chicken pox. Memories of the palace are vague, but it was enormous for a 15-year-old, as you can see in the photograph. I had a vast bedroom and was sure that the female ghost, known to be wandering around the palace, used to visit. There were several functioning kitchens to cover the different religions in the family and staff. Auntie Gina was a great hostess, and there was always some dinner or party to attend. The first trip made me realize how much heritage the family of Cooch Behar had, and that somehow it should be recorded. At the time, it was still the here and now and a functioning palace and the family home, and I don't think anyone thought about the future. As a result, I then undertook to create a family tree with the help of a Sen aunt, Doyoti Devi, Maharani of Nangan, who had many memories of growing up with my grandmother and her family at the palace and in Calcutta. I recall years later that Viraj, then Maharaj of Cooch Behar, said the palace had become a hospital during the wars across the borders. Further trips to India were when I was 21 and went to Delhi, where I met with more family, and in 1982 when I stayed in Jaipur with Auntie Ayesha. During these trips, I would encounter old retainers who knew my grandmother, baby Cooch Behar, and it meant a lot to them that we visited and maintained the old customs. The important part of our heritage that we all carry is the fact we have been given Indian second names after various aunts, something that we are very proud about. Sarah and I have also named our daughters after members of the family too. Apart from the names, there is some physical likeness, as pointed out once by Auntie Ayesha while I was visiting her in London. She looked at me and announced that I have the Cooch Behar nose, as do we all. I would like to thank Rishi and all the members of the Cooch Behar Archive Society for giving us this opportunity to delve back into our heritage and to share it with you during this weekend. And now I pass over to Diana.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Rishi and the Cooch Behar Archive Society. I've got 3 reflections to share with you about my Cooch Behar heritage. The first is the enormous influence I feel from 5 amazing women, Cooch Behar women, all of them strong, kind, elegant, fiercely committed to their family, and all having had to navigate difficult lives in different cultures and lives of turmoil. The first, of course, is Suniti Devi, devout, regal, committed, strong advocate of education for women and social reform. Of course, I never knew her, but I have her books to read. Indira Devi, beautiful, fierce at times, strongly traditional, as well as inspiringly future-focused, and often very kind. I'm not sure many of you listening will know that she was a very, very keen Beatles fan through and through. Granny, Sudhira to you, but little Granny to us. Beautiful, delicate, kind, a devoted Brahmo committed to respect for family. She shared with me her cultural traditions and always used our Indian names. She had an interesting life, and I'm sorry I didn't have the opportunity to really talk to her about it. But she volunteered as an auxiliary driver in England in the World War I, and also as a nurse, and we believe that she nursed returning Indian soldiers alongside Sophia Singh. And then Ayesha Gayatri, headstrong, respected, outspoken, direct, and so very beautiful. I loved spending time with her because of her interest in politics. And one summer I worked voluntarily as her secretary in London. She was, as I can say now, a demanding boss. And the fifth is my beautiful and indefatigable mother, Monisha, who has passed down to us respect and belief in family, her Indian and Brahmo traditions, and helped us to bring our two worlds together. Briefly, before I move on, I wanted to just mention the visit to Cooch Behar that we had recently. It was an incredible visit which enriched my knowledge of place and family. I felt very much at home in Cooch Behar. I was struck in this visit by the visible and lasting legacy that the Maharaja Napendra and Suniti Devi and their sons and their grandson Baya had on Cooch Behar of today. Drawing from their two worlds, they'd brought innovation, design, and new thinking to their home state. They might be criticised by some, but it's given Cooch Behar a distinct look and feel, almost a hybrid heritage, something to celebrate and potentially show off to a wider world. And of course, the palace visit, guided by Rishi, was incredible. It was uplifting to see how busy it was with so many local people visiting and enjoying both the palace itself and especially the gardens. And picking up on Dr. Banerjee's talk yesterday and Esther's this morning, it makes me think that this is an important stepping stone to involving local people in preserving Cooch Behar heritage. My final reminiscence is with reference to the Cooch Behar family links with the south of England and particularly to Bexhill-on-Sea. I'm sure everyone here knows that Maharaja Napendra had a royal funeral in Bexhill-on-Sea in 1911, complete with full military honours. These are some of the pictures from the original 1911 Bexhill Observer newspaper article. That full military honours funeral was extremely unusual and possibly a unique occurrence for any foreign head of state in Britain, certainly very unusual for Maharaja in Bexhill, even though the Maharaja was only there for a few months and confined to bed for most of that time. For Bexhill, it's probably the key national event, and it's also therefore part of their heritage. The platform at the railway station was even lengthened, especially to cope with the length of the train. And for a time, that made Bexhill Station the station with the longest platform in England. A memorial commissioned by Raji was lost and destroyed, and perhaps even reused as part of other buildings or a road, but it's been lost here. And I thought this picture is interesting because normally you see either the Maharaja and Indira Devi dressed in Indian dress or both in European dress, and this is an unusual one because actually Indira Devi is dressed in European dress. The mayor, whose back you can see here, was actually a German, and he had to step down shortly after this because at the beginning of the war there was so much anti-German feeling in the town. The Cooch Behar connection is much celebrated in Bexhill, and in the museum there is a special exhibition which Ayesha came to visit the town to open in 1998, accompanied by my mother, who's also in this picture. Local historians also suggest a leading role for the Maharaja in helping to develop the game of snooker in the UK. There are many other myths and tales as well, such as the Maharaja building 2 domed houses for his eunuchs and his responsibility for the Mughal influence on local architecture, though that's more likely to be down to the Indian Empire connections of the local retirees, which Bexhill has had many then and does so now. But the association with the exotic Cooch Behar family is still used to sell houses today, and there's one on the market at the moment that actually has used the connection. Many of the photos we have of the family from that time were taken in southeastern England studios, some of them in Bexhill, very much in the tradition of the Edwardian style of the day. But these are a constant reminder of the 2 different worlds that the family had inhabited and remind me of Suniti's advice. Learn all the good you can from other countries, but remain an Indian still. It's a unique and local link here between where I live now and the Cooch Behar heritage, and I'd love to be able to maintain that and continue to build a bridge between East and West. Thank you very much for this opportunity to talk to you this evening, and I'm now handing over to my younger sister. Am I there?
I'm there. Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you.
Yes, Sarah, we can hear you, please.
Okay, thank you, Rishi. I have very clear memories of growing up with our Cooch Behar relatives, particularly my grandmother Sudhira, who was known as Baby Cooch Behar or Princess Baby, and who lived in London near us. She was very small, and we called her our little granny. She wore beautiful soft saris and made paish for our birthdays. There was also Gayatri Devi, her mother Auntie Indi, and her brother Uncle Baya. They were all very loving and attentive towards us. When they were in London, we would visit them frequently, and through all these relatives about Indian traditions, I remember being taught the proper way to greet them, such as touching their feet. I used to visit at her flat in South Kensington. Uncle Baya's cook would make us special meals when we visited. We used to call Gayatri Devi Auntie Ayesha, and indeed I am named after her. I last saw Auntie Ayesha when she came to our house for supper in the summer of 2008. My elder daughter then saw her later that year in Jaipur during a school trip, which included a visit to the MGD school set up. Auntie Ayesha was always beautiful, regal, and inspirational. I was quite young when my grandmother and my mother's sister and Uncle Baya and Auntie Indi died, and so I did not know much about their lives at that time. I knew that they came from a magical sounding place called Cooch Behar, but I wasn't really aware of their status. However, my mother talked about them and about my great-great-grandfather Keshav Chunder Sen, and I read my great-grandmother's book, Bengal Dacoits and Tigers. I became more aware through adulthood of my Indian heritage, and I knew that one day I needed to visit Cooch Behar. There was also Joyiti Devi, who Vanessa has mentioned, Suniti's niece and daughter of Sucharu. We called her Auntie Sissy. She lived in London, just about 5 minutes walk away from us, and then moved to the country in Wiltshire, and she and her husband were a very big part of our lives. It was Auntie Sissy who gave me a copy of Suniti's book, Bengal Dacoits and Tigers, and it was given, I'm going to see if you can see this, it was given to Auntie Sissy's brother, and it's written in, so his name was Dubendra. It says, "To dear little Dubendra." I don't know if anyone can see that. Maybe Suniti perhaps gave that to Dubendra. And it's dated Woodlands, 1916. So that's a book I used to read when I was little. Mike and I have given our two daughters Indian middle names, Hira and Suniti. Their father is Scottish, and it was important for both of us that they carry their heritage too. I read great-grandmother Suniti's autobiography a few years ago, and this very much prompted my need to visit Cooch Behar, and I feel it was the beginning of my spiritual journey to learn more about my heritage. After much planning, I finally visited Cooch Behar in December 2019 with my sister Diana and our husbands, and spent a wonderful time there. Everywhere we went, we were greeted with overwhelming warmth and emotion. We were filled with pride when the high regard and fond memories of the family were expressed so clearly to us. Particular highlights were, of course, the visit to the palace, my grandmother's home, to the Suniti Academy founded by our great-grandmother, and to the birthday memorial service we were able to attend for my Uncle Baya in the ashram garden. It was also wonderful to visit the tea plantation founded by Uncle Baya, the club in Dinata, and the Mohammedan temple. It was lovely imagining Granny swimming in the palace lake or running around the Durbar Hall. The letters from Jit are charming, one of them telling his mother that baby would know where some of his photographs were. I left Cooch Behar with a proud understanding and an emotional understanding of my ancestors' commitment to the infrastructure, education and social developments of Cooch Behar. We are incredibly grateful to Rishi for organising our visit to Cooch Behar and for sharing with us his depth of knowledge of the city and of our family. And we are so grateful as well to him for involving us in this celebration this weekend of Cooch Behar. And I am so very keen to get back to Cooch Behar as soon as possible. I also would like to show you, before my sister puts up the photographs, my copy of the autobiography of a princess, Sunita's book. And I managed to locate this in an antique shop, and it was written in by Victor. So great uncle Victor gave this to somebody in 1923. So that's fine. So Diane, if you could put up, these are some of my favourite photographs, which I'd like to go through with you. So this is our beautiful great-grandmother Suniti. So serene and wise, I feel. And this is our granny, Sudhira, very young, and this was taken in London at a famous photographic studio, Bassano. And the next one, please, thank you. And this is our mother on the left, Monisha, with her big sister Geeta, who was quite a few years older. Thank you. And this is our mother setting out on with her passion for dogs when she was working with the Metropolitan Police. I believe this picture was taken in Hyde Park. And our mother met our father, who is sadly no longer with us. He was a dog handler in the Metropolitan Police, and this is their wedding day, and you can see that she's wearing a sari. Thank you. And finally, this is Diana and me at the palace in Cooch Behar. Just a magical, magical moment standing on the balcony and being there after so many years of waiting, being at the palace at my family's home. So thank you so much, everyone, for listening. And thank you so much to the Cooch Behar Archives. What a pleasure. Thank you.
First of all, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah,
am I audible?
We can hear you.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. First of all, we would like to offer our sincere thanks to Mrs. Monisha Vida Garnham in absentia. We would like to thank our special guests, Mrs. Vanessa Indira and Mrs. Diana Buse, and our chief guest, Mrs. Sara Cowie, for their wonderful recollections and the most remarkable slides they had presented. Once again, we offer our most cordial thanks to all of them. Thank you.